Hello, let's talk about the Leo eclipse that's upcoming on the 12th of August. Austin Coppock calls it Banner. So it's like we're being asked, what are we actually standing behind? What banner are we called to, attracted to? What banner are we willing to publicly defend? What aligns with our values? And we're being given a refresh, a chance to realign and unveil whatever's been quietly changing for us over the last 18 years. It depends on the cycles that we're in our own personal charts. So sometimes you might be sensing that your life is beginning to change before anything obvious, material, or actual has happened. Perhaps a conversation is lingering and returning in your thoughts, or you're getting a recurring dream. Maybe an idea that once felt distant is now, at this moment, starting to feel possible for you. You might find yourself returning to the same question, as though something's quietly gathering momentum beneath the surface. And this can be what eclipses feel like. This one falls at 20 degrees of Leo, which means it's falling in the third decan. It's the start of a moon family that's going to unfold over 27 months, and actually even longer because it is an eclipse. When eclipses fall in a moon family, they can also be the start of a longer story that continues on for 2 moon families, an even longer story that we might be looking at for 5 years or more. So what are you standing behind, and is that changing right now? So a total solar eclipse isn't just this darkening sky. It's a new moon, and we get one of those every month. But the alignment of the new moon is falling close enough to the lunar nodes, and those are mathematical points where the path of the moon is intersecting with the path of the sun. So it's a point that astronomers and astrologers observe. It's a theoretical point, but it matters because where the moon's path and the sun path intersect, it's telling us something quite important. So we see here that a solar eclipse can be more than just this new moon. It begins this long chapter, can accelerate change and reveal what's been hidden up to now. It can redirect us on our paths and begin this 5-year moon family story. But you see from this slide here that the moon is traveling in between the sun and the earth. So although the moon is much smaller than the sun, from our perspective on the earth, they both appear to be the same size where the eclipse is going to land, which is parts of Europe. There's Spain and Portugal, and also Iceland, Greenland, and parts of North Russia. They will see this total eclipse where the sun is completely blocked out and it darkens. So ancient astrologers treated this interruption of the light as an extraordinary event, a moment when the ordinary order of things just briefly falls away. And these moments call for our attention still. We might see the fall of solar figures, main leaders in society, but they can also mark places where the meaning only becomes clear with time. So sometimes people can expect the eclipse day itself to be dramatic, but that's not how it works. They're like tectonic plates that shift imperceptibly. Each day isn't dramatic or significant, but over time you see these widening gaps or this moving together of continents. If you want to find out more with my Astere Sophia Kairos colleagues, which is Practical Astro's Krista and Sonia of Smart Astro on social media, but also Unfolding Astrology on Substack, we led a workshop on eclipses and we went deeper into the mythology of the Leo Aquarius axis, these solar cycles and the moon families and how they operate with eclipses. That's still available for purchase, and you'll find a link in the show notes. So the main thing to grasp is that we might not understand everything all at once because its meaning is often discovered by just living through it. So not forcing immediate answers, but observing and just seeing what is coming into your life and what is leaving it. What conversations are standing out to you? What quiet shifts do you see? What opportunities that seem small can become the threads of something much larger? Astrologer Chris Brennan says that it's great beginnings and great endings, but we don't always know that we're in those great beginnings at the start of them. It might seem insignificant, an idea that you discuss with your friends, and you don't realize that it's going to become something major in your life when you first verbalize it or share it, and it just grows into something bigger. Each sign contains 3 different landscapes. There's 3 divisions of 10 degrees each, so a sign contains 30 degrees. Austin Coppock has called it the banner. And they're all distinct landscapes. They're all ruled by different planets, and they tell their own story. They have accumulated myths and stories and deities that relate to them over time. So this eclipse is falling in Leo 3, the final decan, and here the rulership of the sun ruling Leo is meeting this determination of Mars, bringing friction, bringing some conflict and some challenge, but asking us what we're prepared to stand behind. And we see here the little hedgehog high on the hill, standing proud, declaring what he stands behind, what we represent, and what we're prepared to carry forward, gathering people around a visible principle. So it's important that visibility sign is part of that Leo essence, and realizing that when there's visibility, others may also challenge it. There's a vulnerability there as well. Loud and proud, which is the Leo essence. And it feels especially fitting right now. We've had a difficult time. If you're in the astrology community, you'll know what I'm talking about. Our leaders in the astrological community have been challenged because one of our elders, and I've got his books on my bookcase, has long been respected, has worked in astrology, I think, for over 40 years, has a huge body of work, made a racist comment in a podcast, which was then published, and then made an apology, which many felt was not an apology. He was pushing the onus back on those people who were harmed by the comment. He was appalled at their reaction rather than taking responsibility. So the apology kind of confounded the original harm, rather than taking responsibility for that and making reparations and seeking to understand, learn and do better. That wasn't the essence of the apology. It was defensive, protective of the image. So we've seen various leaders step up and draw a really clear line in the sand. Notably, Jen Zart, the president of ESA, did this. And it was really quick, her response, and it was really clear, saying what is unacceptable, what are ethics are that we sign up to when we're members of these associations. And she proposed a way forward that didn't isolate the person responsible, but also held them accountable for their words and said how this could be resolved. 2 things can be true at once. The fact that he's got this huge body of work, that he is respected for his work, that isn't untrue because he said a racist thing. It's not like because he's got this work that he can't be racist. We need to know that the person is going to take responsibility, show awareness of how their words have harmed people, and learn and educate themselves and do better going forwards. I know that I've made mistakes, and we all make mistakes because we're human. And that's part of this banner essence, is this divide in the astrological community. It's splitting the community in terms of where we stand on it. There's other leaders who have really sent a long letter with a lot of words about how difficult it is for them personally, how they know him as a friend, or how they've worked with him. And it's like, yeah, that can all be true, but it isn't relevant. None of that is relevant. What's relevant is the harm that's been done, an apology, and an understanding that that has caused harm. If there's going to be paragraphs about harm or difficulties, it's about the people who've been harmed by it and centering them. I found some of this difficulty with forming a response by the leaders of organizations who are responsible for our ethics quite hard to understand, because it's very, very clear that we're inclusive and we don't tolerate racism and we don't tolerate racist comments. So it's like, where is the difficulty? While that person is still defending that action and trying to put it in different contexts that to them make it okay, that isn't working. And it's not going to work. It's only going to work to those people who are idolizing that person. And they're going to idolize them no matter what. But the people who see it as a problem are not going to be moved by any placement of context, because that's not okay. So that is our banner. So yes, this visibility, we can see very clearly how it's showing up for us in the astrological community, and maybe reflect on how it's showing up for you. Is there something that you've been called to defend, or to speak publicly on, or to speak within your own circle on? And is it aligning with your values? Does it still align with your values, or have your values changed in the light of what's been said? Astrologer Kira Ryberg also calls this decan defensive, and we can see how that defensiveness has come out between people defending the person or defending the ethics. You know, who are we in the astrology community? Are we inclusive? And what does that word mean? When somebody causes harm, are we going to hold them accountable regardless of their status? Because that's what being truly inclusive means, that it applies to everybody. It's like the law. It must apply to everybody. And we've seen that in the UK with royalty. You know, if the law doesn't apply to everybody, it doesn't really stand for anything. So while defensive may stand combative, the deeper meaning is also protective. If something is important enough to you and it aligns with your values and they're healthy boundaries that you've set for yourself, then we're protecting something precious. So yeah, that's why I feel I need to speak in it, because the astrology community being inclusive is important to me. The ethics that I've signed up to is important to me. So I have to defend it and be protective of it. And sometimes we all have to speak up. The Wild Way calls this decan strength under fire. And we can see that as well with the different debates going on. And we can also look at the symbolism back into the natural world. At this time, this decan comes as the sun moves through the end of Leo, and we're in late summer. It's not dramatic. We've seen the summer growth, the summer warmth, but we know we're coming to the end of the season. The long evenings are starting to shorten. You know, we're not getting as much of that light. We can't sit outdoors for as late as we used to. And maybe the sun's losing a little bit of its power, sitting a little bit lower in the sky. Just notice all of that as well and see how you find strength in nature and in what continues. T. Susan Chang pairs Leo 3 with the Seven of Wands and gives this decan the memorable title, No Guts, No Glory. And in that image, somebody again is standing on the hill and they've already climbed the hill as this hedgehog has. And so that tells us that the achievement is already complete. But the question is, are they going to remain true to what they've gained? Once something is visible, it also becomes vulnerable. Leo is very creative and sharing. So Leo is asking you to share your creative work, but leadership has to be embodied. Relationships are asking you for honesty, and values are asking to be lived, not simply admired or signed up to, and then you carry on as you were before. So we have the banner and this defensiveness that's showing us what is protecting, the Wild Way that's showing us that strength grows through patience, and T. Susan Chang revealing the courage to remain standing. Each are illuminating this different aspect of the same terrain, and together they're asking us to notice not only what matters to us, but also what we're choosing to stand behind. So let's look at what the sky is telling us, because the eclipse doesn't arrive alone. The planets are speaking to one another, and this adds another layer to what unfolds beneath in ways that we can't yet see. So we have Mercury and Jupiter are both in Leo. Mercury is applying towards Jupiter, but before it gets there, it's connecting with Uranus in a sextile. And it's also separating from Neptune and its opposition with Pluto. So Mercury is the messenger planet. It notices details, it's asking questions, giving language to our experiences. Jupiter in Leo is broadening this horizon and helping us to recognize how these individual moments we're experiencing in Leo may belong to a larger pattern. So together, while they're in Leo, they can both give us greater reach to ideas and conversations, particularly those connected with creativity, confidence, or something that we care enough about to speak for. So with this opposition to Pluto in Aquarius, at the same time as Jupiter is still separating from the opposition, but still in a wide connection with Pluto, we might uncover something that's stayed hidden beneath the surface, which is also what the eclipse is trying to tell us as well. So we've got this happening in the first decan as well as the third. And a conversation that begins casually can continue working on us afterwards, that something is just seeded. We find that Venus has recently entered Libra. This is her own domicile, and she's drawing our attention towards relationships, beauty, fairness, justice, the ways that we exchange care with each other, and social equilibrium and diplomacy, the ways that we meet each other. At this eclipse, she's at 5 degrees of Libra. She's still several weeks away from her retrograde shadow, but as she's entered Libra, she's started that retrograde journey that she's going to move through that isn't going to end until December. So she is going to retrograde when she reaches Scorpio and then return back to 22 degrees of Libra. So she enters her retrograde shadow on the 31st of August at 22 degrees Libra, and then she'll station retrograde on the 3rd of October at 8 degrees of Scorpio and return to Libra on her backwards journey. So she's returning back over those degrees that she traveled forwards on, and then when she stations direct on the 13th of November at 22 degrees of Libra, she returns back over them forward for a second time. So that's 3 passes over the same degrees in those areas of Libra to Scorpio. While she is retrograde, while she is gone down into the underworld journey, look at themes emerging around relationships, creativity, desire, value, and exchange, and how they deserve attention, because Venus has several months now in which to develop this conversation. Another Substack astrologer, Alison Dale, wrote an excellent article and drew our attention to another striking feature of this eclipse, and that is this asteroid, Ishtar. The story of Inanna and Ishtar is often connected with the Venus retrograde story. When we add her to the chart, we find that she creates this 6-point pattern. We've got 2 trines operating. Venus is operating an air trine between Pluto in Aquarius and Uranus in Gemini, and then Ishtar is creating another trine between Sagittarius, Mercury and Jupiter in Leo, and Neptune in Aries. So they're both connecting into this Barbo's basket that's going on, which is like quite amazing, really. So this is like a really significant moment of this solar eclipse as well, like a restart and bringing the feminine into this story. While these are in quite yang signs, it's introducing like the deepest of the feminine stories, the most vulnerable, the underground story. The symbolism and the story of Inanna, or Ishtar, tells of this descent through 7 gates into the underworld, and she does this out of care for humanity, for people who are suffering. And at each gate, she's asked to remove a part of her identity and the protection, the adornments, the talismans that she's wearing. So there's this laying something aside, creating the space to meet ourselves differently and how we might experience the eclipse. And it does feel like this is an introduction, a starting moment here in this trine, which is a very comfortable, easeful relationship, but it can bring swift actions like water flowing. So behind the eclipse, we've got these slower moving planets continuing to hold this like amazing configuration. It's so rare. I think it was in the 800s was the last time something was observed like it, one astrologer found. And it's one of the defining signatures, probably of our generation, maybe. That might be too much to say, but the outer planets all connecting is really significant. Saturn remains retrograde in Aries and forming a trine to the solar eclipse as well, bringing questions of responsibility. It's slowing everything down. In Aries, things are moving fast. There's fast decisions, fast impulse reactions. And now this retrograde of Saturn, who is already bringing a heaviness and a responsibility, but now it's retrograde as well, bringing questions of responsibility, endurance and consequence into this lunar cycle, making us look back and slow down of these decisions that are being made. So when we think of fire, Aries is this spark and Leo is the hearth that's sustaining it. But Saturn's just like a fire in slow motion. Or how do you slow down fire? Like the fire breaks that we see on the wildfires that are happening. Leo also already understands that inspiration becomes meaningful only if we take action on it. And then we're prepared to sustain and see something actually come into fruition. And Saturn is reinforcing that, giving us that opportunity to bring something into being and to actually sustain it and make it really happen and make it something lasting. So it might be very exciting when we have an idea and then we find out quite how much work is involved and reality might be different to what we imagined. And we may give up on it or shelve it. But Saturn and the eclipse here is sort of saying, no, that idea you thought of before, it's time now. So if something like that is coming up for you, maybe is a time to go ahead with it. And this is how observing what's coming up in your life can help more than any prediction that I could offer, is just observing what's coming up and knowing the symbology of the astrology as well. And this is also why I find the moon family so useful. Rather than asking what the eclipse meant, we can return to the simpler question of how it's developing. So let's have a quick look for these dates. As I said, this can continue much longer into a 5-year project. So at the moment, we're just at this seeding on the 12th of August, 2026. And then you've got 9 months before the first quarter, which is when you might be asked to make a decision, take some action. There may be challenges. That will be on or around the 13th of May, 2027. The full moon for this moon family comes on the 10th of February, 2028 at 21 degrees. And that's the fruition, a peak, a culmination where you'll see it'll be much more obvious what the story is. So don't worry if you can't see what it is now. You're not meant to. All we're doing is observing what it might be and allowing things to grow that we're offered, just accepting what comes into our lives and giving it that potential to grow. And also around that 9th of November, that can also be that last square as well, where you have to integrate and let things fall away that you might not want to. But if things are naturally falling away, it's a good time to understand that that's the phase you're in. And understanding those phases can help you move through it, understanding that's what's meant to be happening. So this is activating the fixed and fire placements between 15 to 23 degrees of Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius, Sagittarius and Aries. And it's also for you if you've got the Sun as your Lord of the Year or as your solar return ascendant Lord. So if you've got Leo rising in your solar return chart. So this is giving you a great timing outline of how things might develop and why you might not be understanding it straight away. I offer a lunar tracking journal that prompts you through those dates and those turnings. And if you're looking at the workshop that we offered, that journal is also included with it. And it's also available separately for sale on my Ko-fi shop. So I'll put all those links in the show notes. Just observe what catches your attention right now. Just notice, spend time in nature, spend time with the sun before we lose it, before summer's gone. Spend time noticing the changes from the height of summer to now. Notice the conversations that stay with you, the unexpected invitations or opportunities that pop up, any decisions that feel meaningful, any new ideas, any recurring dreams or symbols, people entering or leaving your life, creative ideas that continue asking for your attention, or places that you're feeling unexpectedly drawn to. Don't worry about interpreting it yet. Just observe it and you'll know more. That will help you when you get to the first quarter. These notes will help you see what has faded and what's growing and what needs decisions making. And by the full moon, it will be much clearer as well. And this really helps you make astrology become a lived experience as well. So yeah, just tapping into that wisdom, that quiet wisdom of late summer. The energy of early summer is settled into this steady growth and the work of the season is becoming visible, even if it's not yet harvest time. That arrives usually in Virgo. With the heat waves we've been having in July and August in the UK, everything's a bit discombobulated right now. And we notice how that time moves and maybe have a reflection on time and how it's moving. Consider what you're now standing behind and whether that has changed in any way. If you've been asked to reconsider what your values are, your principles and what you align with, and if that's been challenged in any way or if you've had to defend it in any way. It might have been in a relationship or a piece of work that's been criticized or a way of living that's become part of who you are and people are asking questions about it. It doesn't always have to be dramatic. It can be a small conversation or a decision that's changing something for you. And at first, maybe very little changes and you're like, what was that eclipse all about that those astrologers were talking about? But as the weeks unfold, keep maybe returning to it and look at what's returning to you, seeing how it's unfolding and see how the eclipse is revealing itself gradually. And if you want to work with the Moon family through the structured guidance, the Celestia Circle workbook and the live sessions where we look ahead at the lunations of the month are linked below. So hopefully I may see some of you there, but I hope this makes sense to you. If you've got any questions, if you want to share your experiences, I always love to hear that in the comments. Please do let me know how this is showing up for you, especially with an eclipse, especially as it's our first one in Leo. So the sun is the ruler and the sun is the one being eclipsed. So it's big, it's loud and proud. So I wish you well, enjoy eclipse season and travel well, friends.